Hello everyone, and thank you for attending this session. The topic I will talk about today is the privacy in the era of customer experience management. So you may not know me, but hopefully at the end of the presentation you will understand why it is called Unomi. So first of all, today I'll talk about customer experience. So as you know, as you may know, because I'm assuming some of you are digital marketers, digital marketing has evolved today. It is now driven by one or several databases, by a lot of data. It is usually in the hands, of course, of your chief marketer, but more and more also in the hands of your CIO or IT team. And nowadays, more and more customer data is being collected and used, and it's raised the need for brands to actually restore the trust of their customers. Everyone has seen in the news a lot of hacking. I'm going to talk about this, but we as a digital marketer, we have to restore the trust with our customers. And legislation about data collection becomes every day more precise and more sophisticated. And I'm also going to talk about that. And then we'll talk about what open source can bring to the table and what we at Jahia are doing about it. So let's talk about customer experience and the personal touch you need to have with your customers. So first of all, in today's digital age, there is no more sustainable competitive advantage with your product, your channels, your services of your geographic markets. As you can see today, everyone can build a phone, a smartphone, everybody can build a plane, more and more competition around products makes it very difficult for you to differentiate with your products. But today, the only sustainable competitive advantage to you, no matter what business you're in, is actually the quality of your customer experience. This is why 140% of customers who had a good past experience with your brand will spend on average 140% more than those who had a poor past experience. So today, and you can see that with any brands you're dealing with, whether it's your electronics, your home devices, your cars and everything, that the brands who win are the brands who have a customer-centric approach for digital engagement. Not just online, but also offline. We're going to discuss this a bit more. And they put the real people at the heart of their digital business. So now the question is, how can you do that when you know that less than 20% of businesses, companies, thought that their platform could deliver on marketing promises. So there is a very low confidence in the ability of today's tool to deliver this challenge. Because I think the challenge of customer experience is something that more and more people are aware of, but the delivery of it is still a problem. So this is another slide that highlights the impact of customer experience. Again, it is not just something that is hype. It is measured and it has a huge impact on any businesses. So for those businesses who are public, Forrester issued a report and an actual analysis that shows that the CX leaders, so the CX leaders are those companies who are considered to provide the best possible customer experience to the customer. They had, on average, 43% more performance, increase in their performance in the stock market compared to over a 6-year range, compared to a 14% for S&P 500. And then if you look at the CX laggard, those who actually did not take an active approach in their customer experience, they had a minus 34% decrease. So the swing is almost 80%. It is absolutely huge. The second illustration is about the example of a CX leader and a CX laggard, and you can see that when it comes to revenue or customer acquisition, the impact of your customer experience is actually huge. And we'll discuss this more because it's not just about revenue, customer acquisition, it is more than that. So now let's talk about what customer experience really is. So first of all, it's a given. Whether you manage it or not, customers have an experience with your brand, period. So that's the first thing. It's whether you like it or not, it exists. It also is the results of what we call touch points. So of course, touch points can be just walk in the door at a Starbucks and I get a greeting from your staff, and then it extends online, of course, on your mobile, it can be in your connected devices, etc. So that's a second point of definition, which is important. Then there's another very important point that everyone needs to have in mind, is that great customer experience requires strong collaboration in your company. So it's actually a reflection of your company. Like to say we're customer-centric is not to tell the marketing department that they have to be customer-centric. It's your entire organization, from support people in your stores, of course your sales team, but even R&D, everyone has to be customer-centric. So that's why there needs to be strong collaboration around the topic of customer experience. So there shouldn't be not just the department about customer experience, the entire company should be working together on customer experience. So now, what about brand experience and digital experience? Well, brand experience is simply, your brand promise made visible in your market. And the way you differentiate it is actually through the customer experience, okay? So that's why customer experience becomes your profit center, and again, it's your only sustainable competitive advantage today. That's what all analysts are saying, not just Gartner and Forrester, even the McKinseys and the BCG. So digital experience, what is it? It's actually the way you deliver customer experience, because as we've said at the beginning, your customer experience today, if it's modern, it has to be data-driven. And of course, you've all heard about the Uberization of the economy, so that it means that everyone has to capture data on their customers just to survive. So what is also important to keep in mind is that marketing 15 years ago, it was about convenience. So it's convenience to get a cab, I just hail it in the street, and then all of a sudden I get a cab. It's convenient to buy, I don't know, an iPhone, no, not an iPhone at the time, but a product in the store. So convenience, placement was the most important for marketers. My product is there, it's easy to buy, so my customers are going to buy it. But in 2008, at the time where there was a huge crisis and a lot of stores had to shut down, marketers had a big pressure to deliver on online business. That's one thing. And then, of course, there was the iPhone. There was Facebook as well. So immediacy became the number one, paradigm for an imperative for marketers. If I'm a customer, I want something, and I want it now. Okay? And now, beyond that, the people still want something, they want it now, but what's happening right now is that people want to feel intimate. So more and more companies are able to deliver products in a convenient way and in an immediate way, but not all companies today are able to have an intimate one-on-one conversation with their customers. Because it requires concerted effort. So the intimacy is actually what will define your success. And what's important is that it doesn't just start with customer acquisition, not just because today, everyone is talking about digital marketing, and a lot of companies are spending heavily to acquire new customers. So the prospects are actually very well targeted, and they have a great experience. The problem is, once they become a customer, and this is sometimes, and most of the time, a technology issue, they don't have an experience that is as good as when they were prospects. So that's a big problem. So the intimacy is only possible if you provide the same level of personalization to your customer, but whatever is his stage. As good when he's a prospect, and even better when he's a customer, because that's how you're going to make this customer an advocate of your brand. So another important point, an important shift that happened in the technology market recently. The talk was a lot about multi-channel for, I would say it started 10 years ago, and every company was trying to optimize the output of each of their channel. So channel can be a lot of different things, but of course can be your mobile experience. It could be your web experience, could be your store experience, but everyone was focusing on maximizing performance for each channel. The problem is that this is more of an inside-out approach. So I'm a company, I want to optimize my channel. But when we talk about customer intimacy, it's very important to have a different approach, which is called omni-channel. It's an outside-in approach. It means that when I'm a customer, again, whether I'm a prospect or a customer, I want my experience with my favorite brand to be personal to me, but also to be trustworthy. And it doesn't matter what device or how I interact with your brand, it needs to be consistent. So that's the concept of omni-channel, which is again outside in, which is the opposite of the old concept of multi-channel. So if we look at if you look at other important aspects of a great customer experience, is communication. So communication has to be personal. It has to be, of course, relevant and timely. So if you want to sell me a car at a time when I don't have bandwidth or brain time to listen to your message, or if you bother me with things that are not for me, but maybe for my wife or a friend, then chances are I'm not going to engage with your brand much more. Even more so if your communication to me is not credible. I don't really believe that your car can do this or your product can do that. And if I lose trust, so for instance, if I realize that you've been collecting data on myself and then your servers get hacked, chances are I'm going to lose trust and disengage right away from your brand. So you lose me as a customer, and usually for life. And finally, communication has to be based on data, because of course, if you as a marketer needs to talk to me, and you need to talk not just to me, but to sometimes millions of customers, you need to handle a massive amount of data. So, unfortunately, we've talked about intimacy for the customer, but this is what CMOs are dealing with today. It's a real big challenge. They have a proliferation of technologies to catch up with. They have to learn all of these technologies, and even if each of, and of course not all at the same time, but our customers, they tell us that sometimes they deal with 15, 20, 30 of them. And the problem is that how can they deliver you know, a clear communication, one-on-one you know, communication to each customer when they have to deal with this mess? That's a big challenge. So another challenge is the one of the CIO, the IT department. They have to deal with siloed systems and data. So their problem is that they have to deliver data privacy to their customer, but how can they deliver that when you know, they have to process all of this data, deal with all of this integration? How can they deliver privacy? I'm not even talking about security. It's a big problem for them. More and more silos every day. So let's take an example. We looked at CNN.com a couple of months ago, and what we found was amazing. 66 trackers on the website. So, of course, you know, if I'm a customer, I know there's data tracking. It's not, nobody is naive anymore. Data are tracked, you know. The only problem is that even if I know it's tracked, what is done with my data is a total mystery to me. So how can I trust CNN? And I'm not picking on them specifically, other brands are doing the same, if I don't know where my data is as a customer. So again, the important issue here is not the trackers themselves, because again, we said that to deliver you know, the best possible customer experience, you need data. So the problem is not to collect data. The problem is really either to lose control, you as a company, on all of this data, or leaving your customer in the dark with what happens to this data, quite simply. Okay? And there's other issues with this example. How do you ask, you as a marketer, permission to delete this data from your customer if your customer asks for it? You know, you're actually trading your marketing power for your ability to control the data. It's actually other vendors who control your customer experience and your brand experience, not just you. And sometimes there's other issues like, how could I make sure that this data represents what my customer was doing at the right time? I have no control over that, even as a marketer. And there's another issue, which we'll discuss a bit later, is who actually owns this shared data? Is it the vendors? Is it CNN.com? Is it the user? So the bottom line is that with situations such as this one, and here I just took an example, you're trading your most valuable asset, because again, your most valuable asset is your customer experience, which is the only sustainable future and current competitive advantage. So there's additional side effects, and more for the IT team actually. How can you maintain security and stability when you have to deal with all of these applications, and how can you deliver, you know, a fast experience if you have to have back and forth with databases that are you know, remote and that you don't control? Of course, you have to deal with challenges in terms of integration of your front end. That's just something you have to deal with. So then, of course, not only the first install is difficult, but any maintenance and update would be very complex as well. And then your customer profile will become fragmented. Again, you cannot control today. We have a solution for that, but you cannot control today your customer profile by having this type of fragmented, you know, third parties put together all of this data in different databases. And of course, these third parties, they can mine, they can send and sell data without your knowledge nor your customer's knowledge. So what we like to say, because we work with a lot of very large companies, we like to when it comes to digital marketing, we tell them that to become intimate with your customer, you need to connect, respect, and protect. And you will see a little bit later in the presentation, this is actually a big marketplace advantage if you do that today. So now let's talk about legislation, okay? There's new legislation, as you may have heard of, that mandates customer data to be protected. And customer experience, as we said before, requires trust. So let's talk about trust. Trust is complex. Trust is about ethics, it's about being transparent, it's about giving control, it's about access, the ability to audit, and also security. And when it comes to online experience, trust is very related to privacy. So, trust matters big time. If you look at these logos, those are brands who lost the trust of their customer overnight simply because they got hacked. And when they got hacked, everyone was able to see the type of customer data that these brands were storing without their customer knowing about it. So the question here is not how do I protect from being hacked, because as we know, the problem is not if I'm going to get hacked. The question is when am I going to get hacked? There's more and more hacking every day, so hackers are good, unfortunately. So now the question is, can you get hacked without losing the trust of your customer? That's the real question. Because if you take control and you can do that, then getting hacked is painful, but it's not going to destroy your business. So the problem is that, when customers interact with your brand, they feel like, okay, I'm talking to someone, welcome to my house. And the deception comes from the fact that when, Kate comes back to her house, all of a sudden there's tons of people she doesn't know, she didn't invite it, and that's how she loses trust. And again, you can take the example of, United, or there's other brands that are very good with customer experience. This is what you expect when you're a customer. You expect to have great customer support, when you browse a United app on your phone, that it knows exactly where you're going, it knows your mileage, it tells you where to go in the airport to find the lounge, etc. Or when I enter a Nike store, I want Nike to know my shoe size, my favorite color, I want them to know what type of sports I do, so that if I talk to someone, I have a better interaction and it's going to be more to the point. But the reality, as we've said, is different, is very often different. And so here, the problem is simply a gap between expectations and reality. So on one side, you've got your customer who want to feel safe and in control of their personal data online. On the other side, the marketers, they really want to serve their customers better by understanding them, quite simply. So we believe at Jahia that only by putting privacy standards at the heart of your infrastructure and operations, you'll be able to restore trust in the online channel. And we feel that you need to put your customer and their needs at the center of your organization, as I said before. You need to use tools that are agile to deliver the right and responsive customer experience at the right time. And you need to be privacy focused. You need to be transparent, and people need to trust the solutions that you provide to them. So that's what Gartner says when they say successful privacy is about finding the right balance between conflicting perspectives, information sharing, information protection, law and technology, innovation and conservation. So again, I was about to talk about legislation. So legislation on data privacy is not new. It's been in the works for some time. It started in 1980 with the OECD. And we're going to talk about the most recent legislation from earlier this year, and that is called GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation, and that will be enacted, fully enforced in 2018. So this regulation is actually a very big deal. Why? First, because hundreds of millions of dollars or euros or Swiss franc could be collected in fines for misusing people's online data. Second, because it extends and formalizes the right to be forgotten in European law. So it's not just Google who has to deal with this, it's every company. So that means you have to put together systems to be able to do that. So people will have the right to ask companies to remove data about them. This is a big deal, and it starts in 2018, just to let you know. So companies will have 72 hours to report any data breach to regulators. Anyone under 16 will be needing parental consent before using social networks. This is good. I have 3 kids. I'm happy about that. These rules extend to any company that have customers in the region, in Europe. So even if you're a Asian company, US company, if you have 1 customer in Europe, these rules apply to you. And it all happened because last year there was a lawyer in Austria who asked, and it was in October 2015, he asked Facebook to get a record of all of the data that Facebook had collected on him. And so he got a PDF back from Facebook. The problem is that everything he had deleted was still in there. And the guy is a lawyer, he said, look, I'm European, I live in Austria, I'm protected by the law of my country. And Facebook said, yeah, but safe harbor, our servers are in the US, it's US law. Bottom line, Facebook lost, and it actually overnight destroyed the safe harbor law protecting privacy. It became completely unusable. So that's why there is this new law, and it means that Facebook, as an American company, will have to comply to European law because they have European customers. So ramifications, again, up to 4% of companies' global revenue could be spent in fine if they don't comply. And again, a very big impact for any company that deals with European customers. And by the way, as you may know, the European market is still the #1 customer market in the world. Customer market. So this is interesting data that you can actually find also on our website. It gives you the latest in data protection per country around the world, and because it's very sensitive, it's important to check it out. So what we believe at Jahia is that it's not just a legal threat. People should not just look at this as a threat. Of course, you have to comply because it's the law, but it's also a huge opportunity and a business advantage to empower your customer to determine context of their relation, to determine context of their content, to develop more and deeper one-on-one relationship with your customer, to increase, of course, the lifetime value and the revenue from your customer, because again, if you keep on working with them, you get their trust, they become customer, they recommend to other prospects to become a customer because they like your brand, like Apple does. Apple sells phone because you've heard from your friend that this is a great phone. That's the #1 way they develop their business. And of course, so set the stage for customer advocacy. I talked about that, and then you can your solution, your message, your product will be just better received because you have the trust back. So we believe that protecting customer privacy is a marketplace advantage. And let's talk about what we do about it. So first of all, we're an open source company, and just want to quickly recap what are the advantages of open source, especially versus proprietary technology. So first of all, security. Contrary to the FUD that some of the, especially in the US, not too much in Europe, but there's still a proprietary software vendor who make you believe that open source is less secure, whereas it's actually the opposite. Security comes from good code, and the more eyeballs, the more developers you have on a piece of code, the more security is, quite simply. Because if there is a breach, it's fixed right away. Relevance, it's usually more relevant because open source leverages community for users of the technology and developers to work together on relevant feature. Technical superiority. We are an open source vendor, and we commit projects to the Apache Foundation, and we also leverage frameworks from the Apache Foundation. The Apache Foundation is over 4,000 people strong, and we're talking about the elite developer in the planet. The best possible developer is a meritocracy. You just get the best Java developer on the planet to work on this project. So you have technical superiority. It's usually more customizable, whether you're dealing with open source or enterprise open source, such as Jahia. You have freedom. You don't have vendor locking because of interoperability. It's based on standards. All of your data can interoperate with any system. So if you need to switch, you can switch. You can audit open source code way easier because you just own the code, so you just look at it whenever you want. You don't need an escrow. You can audit it at any time, and support is usually widely available. So why am I talking about open source? Because we believe that it's now the time for digital marketing tools to be transparent. And for that, to be transparent, we believe that they need to be based on standards, and thus they need to be ethical. So this is why we've been working on the last 4 years on a project to work on a powerful customer-centric big data aggregator. But when we started to develop it, the question of data privacy came as a direct consequence of this aggregation. So to fix this issue and to solve it, actually we came back to our open source DNA, and we worked with first OASIS, which is the Organization for the Advancement of Structured Information Standard, to deliver a standard called the Context Server Standard. And two, to implement that standard, we built, and it's open source, so we spearheaded this project, but other software vendors are contributing as well. We helped build a reference project named Unomi. So that's why I was talking about Unomi. And it provides a customer-centric data aggregator that has data privacy in its core. So it's standard-based, it's open source, then it's transparent, and it helps, again, standardize digital marketing practices, because standards needs to come when technology are a commodity. And right now, digital marketing becomes a commodity. So it became the Apache Unomi project. And this project, this is the quote from the CEO of OASIS, is not just an important project, it's a vital standardization project. It's also described as the front end for user-centric big data technology. So what it does is that it has an engine that collects data from any backend, and it has easy-to-use interfaces for marketers, which we've implemented in our own product marketing factory. And of course, the result for the user is a personalized and trusted experience. So in terms of features, of course, you have everything you need as a digital marketer. You have the ability to segment, to profile, to report, to deliver A/B testing, even AZ testing, to track users, download tracking, etc. But most importantly, privacy management built at its core. So, as a marketer, you get useful and actionable capabilities, and it's industrialized, so you don't have to deal with the pain of complex, high-end marketing engine that takes weeks to set up. It's easy to use, and you can see data browsed on your website real time. And again, most important, it gives you the ability to give your users or your customers, your prospects, to control what they share with you. Again, they want to share data with you, but they want to know what is shared. It's just that. It's not going to kill digital marketing, it's just going to make it better. So, if you're interested, we have resources on our website, jahia.com, on the privacy section. And I'm just going to finish with a quote from our CEO, which is very important. The way you handle your customer data will define you and your future as a company. And this is a big deal, and now legislation is actually forcing you to take action and to tackle these challenges.